Is the BVI ready for independence? This question was discussed and debated extensively during a public lecture at the H. Lavitti Community College on Thursday, April 25th, following a presentation by internationalist Dr. Max Hilaire on the subject of international law and the right of non-self-governing territories to self-determination. The provocative session was attended by several representatives from across the society, to include lawyers, educators, legislators, talk show hosts, lecturers, and other concerned residents. The purpose of the lecture was to provide information, heighten awareness, and give clarity to issues and possible alternatives to independence, and not necessarily to advise the Virgin Islands on whether to seek sovereign statehood or otherwise. Sean Rose has more.
European countries began their expeditions outside of that continent in pursuit of wealth following the Treaty of Westphalia. The agreement ended the 30 Years' War of 1614 to 1648 in Europe, but it became the springboard and justification for the invasion, conquest, displacement, and enslavement of indigenous populations throughout the Western Hemisphere. Dr. Hilaire, in his examination of Britain's historical hegemony, said self-determination is a moral, ethical, and legal issue, and not necessarily an economic one only.
The British Virgin Islands and the African continent, the rest of the Caribbean, came to be occupied under a law that has since been delegitimized.
Dr. Hilaire was explicit in his description of colonialism and its legacies, and he gave critical analyses of the negative and positive impacts.
The BVI has enjoyed tremendous economic growth that is the envy of the rest of the Caribbean. Whereas Caribbean nations are experiencing economic decay, the BVI economy is thriving. In fact, it is not surprising that so many other Caribbean nationals have flocked to the BVI for employment opportunities. Hence, one can ask, if the situation in the BVI is far superior to that of its neighbors, why should it seek a change in its status from colony to an independent nation?
In 2005, a historical process of constitutional review was initiated by the BVI government through a commission comprising Virgin Islanders headed by lawyer Gerard Ferrara QC. When the 148-page report was submitted on April 22, 2005, then Governor Thomas McCann noted that the overwhelming body of Virgin Islanders preferred that the BVI remains an overseas territory. Sharing his views in response to Dr. Hilaire's lecture delivered on April 25th, Ferrara QC expressed concerns about the need to sustain the economic viability that the BVI currently enjoys, as he called for discussions on the way forward for BVI-UK relations.
Is what kind of relationship can we progress to whereby we have the ability and the latitude to carve out those kind of agreements that would be in our best interest, as we see it as being in our best interest. And that is where we need to get to. Yes, we have the economic pillars and so on, although they are under siege at the moment, so to speak. We know. But siege from countries that, you know, should be protecting us. Exactly. But you know, it's one thing to have that economic freedom and having a high per capita income and a good livelihood and so on and so forth. But part of sustaining that is also having the ability through a new relationship to be able to negotiate on things that are critical and important to the sustaining of those things that are important to your economic viability and success and for future generations to come.
The thought-provoking presentation by Dr. Hilaire was met with mixed reviews.
We have long gone past what you've been talking about tonight. I personally respect Britain for what she has done for all her colonies.
People here fear the economic impact, first and foremost, of independence.
It's either once we have a referendum, we decide on independence, and it doesn't have to be immediate. We decide on integration, or we decide on free association.
I don't think it's an illegitimate occupation. I don't think it's a question of immorality. I don't think it's a question of illegality. I think it's a question of partnership. And I don't believe that we in the BVI have anything to be inhibited about if we say we want to remain in that status for some time and we choose our time. That is my view.
Well, I don't disagree, and as I said, I wasn't here to say to the people of the British Virgin Islands that you should move immediately or as quickly as possible to independence. The issue of morality and legality, as I indicated in my presentation, is if the way the British Virgin Islands and the African continent, the rest of the Caribbean, came to be occupied under a law that has since been delegitimized. So what is the legal or moral basis for continuing that so-called partnership? I'm not opposed to a partnership of equals or a partnership where one has the same right as the other partner. That's treaties. When you sign treaties, you sign as equals. Okay? The problem I have is that what happens if the British government says tomorrow, I want everyone in Tortola to evacuate? What right do you have? None.
We will say we're not going to evacuate. This is our home. Come and bring your guns, try to get us out.
President of the HLSCC, Dr. Carl Dawson, said the presentation by Dr. Hilaire and the subsequent spirited discussions that followed are exactly the type of discourse needed on critical issues affecting the Virgin Islands. Coordinator of the lecture series at HLSCC, Dr. Angel Smith, said the lecture fulfilled its goal as it was intellectually stimulating. The lecture can be viewed in its entirety here on JTV or via our website jtvlive.net. Sean Rose, JTV News.